Seeds of Doubt, the ancient banyan tree, stood as a silent sentinel at the edge of the mango orchard that had belonged to Prisha's grandfather. Each morning, she would walk barefoot along the red soil paths between the trees, inhaling the sweet scent of ripening fruit. The orchard wasn't vast, barely 5 acres, but in the rapidly developing outskirts of Pune, it had become surprisingly valuable. "Your grandfather was wiser than anyone gave him credit for," her mother often remarked. "Who would have thought his stubborn refusal to sell would make you a wealthy woman someday?" Wealth was a relative term. The orchard provided a modest income from its seasonal harvests, but its true value lay in its potential. Developers had been circling like vultures since Prisha inherited it 3 years ago. Each offered higher than the last, each rejection strengthening her resolve to honor her grandfather's legacy. That was before she met Vikram. Malhotra. Their first meeting had been at a mutual friend's wedding. Prisha had been helping arrange marigold garlands when she noticed him, tall, with intelligent eyes that crinkled at the corners when he smiled. Unlike the other businessmen in their pressed suits, Vikram had rolled up his sleeves and was helping the caterers move tables. "My mother taught me that true character shows in how you treat people who can do nothing for you," he'd explained when she commented on it. Their courtship had been swift but not rushed, coffee dates that stretched into dinner, long drives where they discussed everything from childhood memories to dreams for the future. Vikram's family owned Malhotra Enterprises, a growing real estate development company with projects across Maharashtra. When he proposed 6 months later under the very banyan tree at the edge of her orchard, Prisha felt as though all the pieces of her life had finally fallen into place. Then came the whispers. A developer marrying a woman with prime land? How convenient, her cousin Nisha had muttered at their engagement ceremony. "He's playing the long game, Beta," her uncle cautioned. "These business types always have an angle," Prisha had dismissed their concerns, but the seeds of doubt had been planted. They germinated slowly, fed by small observations how Vikram's eyes had lingered on the orchard during their wedding reception held on the property. The casual questions about the land's boundaries. His interest in the old property documents now 3 months into their marriage. Prisha sat at their kitchen table, coffee growing cold between her palms as she stared out the window at the Mumbai skyline. Their apartment was modest by Malhotra standards. Vikram had insisted on making his own way rather than living in his family's mansion in Juhu. "We build our own legacy," he'd said, but was that legacy to be built on her land? Her phone buzzed with a message from him, "Meeting running late. Don't wait up. Love you." The third such message this week. Prisha sighed, setting down her mug. Their early days had been filled with surprises and impromptu picnics. Handwritten notes, his infectious enthusiasm when sharing his latest business idea. Now, he returned home late, exhausted, his mind clearly occupied with work, even as he kissed her goodnight. "It's normal," her friend Divya reassured her. "The honeymoon phase always ends." But something else gnawed at Prisha. Last week, she'd overheard a phone conversation before Vikram noticed her presence. "The orchard property is essential to the Eastern Corridor project," he'd said in his business voice. "I'm handling it, trust me." When she'd entered the room, he'd quickly ended the call, greeting her with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. That night, as Vikram slept beside her, Prisha lay awake, watching shadows play across the ceiling. The man she married was kind, thoughtful, ambitious, but as the daughter of a middle-class government employee, she'd always felt somewhat out of place in his world of business deals and family connections. Had she misread everything? Was her grandfather's orchard the true object of Vikram's affection? As dawn broke over the city, Prisha made a decision. She would protect her heart and her inheritance until she knew for certain what Vikram truly valued. The weight of whispers 6 months into their marriage, the whispers had grown from seeds into thorny vines that wrapped around Prisha's thoughts. Each business call Vikram took in hushed tones, each late night at the office, each business associate who gave her knowing looks at social gatherings, all of it fed her growing suspicion. "The Eastern Corridor development is moving forward," Vikram announced one evening as they sat on their balcony, the lights of Mumbai twinkling below them like earthbound stars. His eyes shone with excitement. "Dad's impressed with how I've handled the negotiations. He's talking about making me project director. That's wonderful, Prisha said, forcing enthusiasm into her voice. She twisted her wedding ring, a nervous habit she'd developed. Is that why you've been working so late? Vikram nodded, pouring himself another glass of wine. The project is massive residential complexes, commercial spaces, even a tech park. It could transform the whole region. He reached for her hand. It could be my chance to prove myself, Prisha. Not as a Malhotra, but as Vikram. She understood. His need to establish his own identity, separate from his family name. Hadn't she felt the same pressure to honor her grandfather through preserving his orchard? But the coincidence of his big project being in the same region as her land felt too convenient. The development. It's near Pune, isn't it? She asked carefully. Something flickered across his face too quick to interpret. Yes, that whole corridor is booming near my orchard. Vikram took a long sip of wine before answering. The project covers a large area. Not a yes, not a no. The non-answer hung between them as heavy as the monsoon air. That night Prisha called her mother. Of course he's interested in the land, her mother said pragmatically. He'd be a fool not to be. That doesn't mean he doesn't love you. But what if that's all it is? Prisha's voice cracked. What if I'm just collateral in a business arrangement? Her mother's sigh traveled through the phone. Beta, you've always had too much imagination. The boy works hard. He provides well. What more do you want? What more indeed? Prisha found herself watching Vikram when he wasn't looking, studying the way he frowned over spreadsheets. The tenderness with which he still kissed her goodbye each morning. The intensity in his eyes. When discussing future plans that increasingly revolved around his work. Never them. The following weekend, they attended a Diwali party at his parents' house. The Malhotra mansion was ablaze with lights, the air heavy with incense and the scent of rich foods. Prisha wore a crimson silk sari that Vikram had gifted her, his family's eyes appraising her as she entered. Ah, the orchard girl, his Uncle Harsh remarked after too many whiskeys. Tell me, when are you planning to put that land to better use? Can't make much from mangoes these days, can you? Vikram smoothly intervened. Prisha's orchard produces the finest Alfonso mangoes in Maharashtra. Some things have value beyond their market price, Uncle. The right words, but something in his tone made Prisha's skin prickle. Was he merely playing the devoted husband for his family's benefit? Later that evening, she overheard a conversation between Vikram and his father in the study. She hadn't meant to eavesdrop, but the mention of her name stopped her outside the partially open door. The girl is becoming difficult, Rajiv Malhotra was saying. If she won't sell willingly, there are other approaches. The Eastern Corridor project cannot be compromised. I'll handle it my way. Vikram's voice was firm. Give me time. Time is money, Beta. Ah, and this opportunity won't wait forever. That orchard is the missing piece we need. Prisha backed away, heart hammering against her ribs. The confirmation of her fears left her cold despite the warm evening. She moved through the rest of the party like a ghost, smiling mechanically, accepting compliments on her sari, her jewelry, her luck in marrying such a promising young man. On the drive home, Vikram reached for her hand. You're quiet tonight. Just tired, she lied, pulling her hand away to adjust her sari pallu. How could she confront him? What would she even say? I know you married me for my land. The accusations seemed simultaneously outrageous and entirely plausible. As the weeks passed, Prisha retreated into herself. She visited her orchard more frequently, spending hours under the banyan tree, seeking her grandfather's wisdom in the rustle of its leaves. The managers reported that Vikram had visited twice while she was in Mumbai asking questions about water rights, property boundaries, soil quality, business questions, not the curiosity of a man interested in his wife's heritage. The distance between them grew. Vikram noticed, how could he not? He brought her gifts, planned weekend getaways that he inevitably had to cancel due to work emergencies, left notes professing his love. But each gesture now seemed calculated, each declaration of affection a business transaction. The loving touches they once shared had become perfunctory, their conversations superficial. What's happening to us? He asked one night, reaching for her across the expanse of their bed. Prisha turned away. I don't know, she whispered, though she feared she knew exactly what was happening. Their marriage, like so many business deals, had been built on hidden terms and conditions, and as the deadline for his Eastern Corridor project approached, she wondered when Vikram would finally show his hand. The answer came sooner than she expected. The monsoon arrived with unusual force that year. Rain lashed against the windows of their Mumbai apartment as Prisha arranged flowers in a vase, a habit she'd brought from her childhood home. The doorbell rang, unexpected on a Sunday morning. Surprise, Vikram said, standing in the doorway with rain-dampened hair. He'd told her he'd be at the office all weekend. I missed you. For a moment, Prisha glimpsed the man she'd fallen in love with, slightly disheveled, his smile reaching his eyes. She let herself be pulled into his embrace, inhaling the familiar sandalwood scent of his cologne mingled with rain. I thought we could have brunch, he said, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Then I have something important to discuss. There it was, the business tone creeping into his voice. Prisha's guard rose again, but she nodded. I'll get ready. They drove to a quiet restaurant overlooking the sea, waves violent under the stormy sky. After they ordered, Vikram reached across the table for her hands. I've missed us, he said softly. You've been distant. So have you, she countered. The Eastern Corridor project seems to demand all your attention. Something flickered. Across his face, resignation, perhaps. That's actually what I wanted to discuss. He took a deep breath. Prisha, an opportunity has come up, something that could change everything. The waiter arrived with their food, but Prisha's appetite had vanished. She watched Vikram cut his omelette into precise squares, a methodical habit that once endeared him to her. Now it seemed to symbolize how he compartmentalized his life work in one square, her in another, never truly intersecting. Sundram Developers has proposed a partnership, he continued after the waiter left. They're impressed with the work we've done so far and want to invest. With their backing, the Eastern Corridor project would become the largest development in Maharashtra's history. Prisha nodded cautiously. Sounds like exactly what you've been working toward. It is. His eyes held an intensity she hadn't seen in months. This partnership would establish Malhotra Enterprises as a major player. Nationally, not just in Maharashtra. Dad is ecstatic. Congratulations, she said, the word tasting bitter on her tongue. But why are you telling me this over brunch? This seems like something you'd celebrate at the office. Vikram set down his fork, food barely touched. Because there's a condition to their partnership. He paused, and Prisha knew what was coming before he said it. They want to include your orchard in the development. They've specifically identified it as ideal for the luxury residential portion of the project. Despite having anticipated this moment for months, the reality of it struck Prisha like a physical blow. My grandfather's orchard. They're offering 3 times market value, Vikram continued, his voice taking on the smooth cadence he used in business presentations. It would be the highest packer rate ever paid in that region. We could use that money too. Prisha interrupted, her voice sharp. There is no we in this decision, Vikram. That orchard is mine. Surprise registered on his face. Of course it's yours. I'm just presenting the opportunity. He reached for her hand again, but she pulled away. Think about what we could do with that kind of capital. We could invest in property elsewhere, something with better returns. We could even buy a larger agricultural plot further from the city. If maintaining an orchard is important to you, it's not about having any orchard, Prisha said, her voice low but steady. It's about my grandfather's orchard. It's the one where he taught me to identify ripening mangoes by their scent. The one where he's buried beneath the banyan tree, the Vikram's brow furrowed. I didn't realize he was buried there. There's a lot you don't realize about that place, she said, because you've never asked. You've only assessed. The rain intensified outside, droplets racing down the window beside their table. Prisha watched them, each one like the tears she refused to shed. This partnership is important to you, she finally said. It wasn't a question. Vikram leaned forward. It would change everything for my career, for our future. And if I say no, his hesitation told her everything. Sunaram is insistent on that particular piece of land. Something about water access and elevation, he sighed. We can't secure it. They'll likely partner with Chodari Developments instead. Prisha nodded slowly, pieces falling into place. Your rival? Yes. Vikram ran a hand through his hair. Look, I'm not trying to pressure you. This is completely your decision. I just wanted you to understand what's at stake. What's at stake for you? She clarified. For us, he insisted. This partnership would secure our financial future for generations. Prisha looked at the man across from her, handsome, ambitious, seemingly earnest. Yet all she could hear were the whispers that had haunted her since their engagement.
Have the cousin's suspicions.
The uncle's warnings, the overheard conversations. When you proposed to me, she said carefully, did you know the orchard would be valuable to your Eastern Corridor project? Vikram stiffened. What are you asking? It's a simple question, Vikram. When you decided to marry me, was my inheritance a factor in your decision? His expression hardened. I married you because I love you. That's not an answer. The silence between them stretched, filled only by the sound of rain and distant thunder. Finally, Vikram sighed. I knew the general area would eventually be developed, he admitted. But I didn't know your specific property would become crucial. That only became clear when Sundaram got involved and identified optimal sites for each component. Prisha nodded, a strange calm settling over her. When do they need an answer? They've called a meeting for next Friday. All stakeholders will be there. Sundaram's executives, our board, potential investors. I'll think about it, she said, pushing her untouched food away. The drive home was silent. Prisha watched Mumbai blur past the rain-streaked window, wondering when exactly the man beside her had become a stranger, or perhaps he'd always been one, and she'd simply been too in love to notice. That evening, as Vikram made business calls, in his home office, Prisha called her mother. He finally asked about the orchard, she said without preamble. Her mother was quiet for a moment. And what will you do? I don't know, Prisha admitted. Part of me wants to refuse just to see if all those whispers were true. To see if he'll stay if I deny him this. And if he does stay, what then? You'll always wonder if he's just waiting for another opportunity. Prisha closed her eyes. What would Dada have wanted? Her mother's voice softened. Your grandfather wanted that land to sustain you, Beta. Whether that means keeping it or using it to build something new, that's for you to decide. After hanging up, Prisha found herself at the door of Vikram's office. He was bent over his laptop, the blue light casting shadows across his face. Looked up, surprised. I need to see it, she said. The full project plans, everything. If I'm to make this decision, I want to understand exactly what would happen to my grandfather's land. Vikram hesitated only briefly before nodding. Of course, I'll arrange for us to visit the project office tomorrow. As she turned to leave, he called her name. Prisha. For what it's worth, I never saw you as just a business opportunity. Never. Paused in the doorway. I wish I could believe that, she said softly, and closed the door behind her. That night, as rain continued to beat against their windows, Prisha lay awake planning her next move. By morning, she knew exactly what she needed to do. Crossroads of the Heart, the project office, occupied the entire 15th floor of a glass-fronted building in Lower Peril. Prisha felt out of place among the sleek furniture and minimalist decor. Her cotton salwar kameez a stark contrast to the crisp suits and formal attire of Vikram's colleagues. They regarded her with curious glances, the wife who held the key to their ambitious project. Mrs. Malhotra, what a pleasure to finally meet you, said Rohan Sundaram, extending his hand. His grip was firm, his smile calculated. Your husband has told us so much about you. Not about my orchard, it seems, Prisha replied evenly. Otherwise you wouldn't have made it central to your plans without consulting me first. A tense silence followed. Vikram cleared his throat. Prisha would like to see the complete project details before making her decision. Of course. Sundaram recovered smoothly. We have nothing to hide. In fact, we're quite proud of the vision. They were led into a conference room where a large digital display dominated one wall. Akram's project manager, a sharp-featured woman named Tanvi, began the presentation. As 3D renderings of the Eastern Corridor development filled the screen, Prisha had to admit it was impressive. A modern, thoughtfully designed community with green spaces, pedestrian zones, sustainable architecture. Then came the section on her orchard. The Heritage Hills luxury villas will be the crown jewel of the development, Tanvi explained, zooming in on the area. 40 exclusive residences set on terraced landscapes, each with panoramic views. The elevation and mature vegetation make this section particularly valuable. On screen, her grandfather's orchard was transformed mango trees replaced with manicured lawns. The uneven terrain leveled into elegant terraces. The ancient banyan tree was nowhere to be seen. In this area here? Prisha pointed to where the tree should stand. Tanvi glanced at Vikram before answering. That would be the community clubhouse and pool, I see. Prisha's voice was quiet. The existing mango trees. Unfortunately, they wouldn't be compatible with the design, Sundaram interjected. But we've allocated funds for extensive new landscaping with native species. Just not mango trees, Prisha noted. They're messy during fruiting season, Tanvi explained with a small smile. Not ideal for luxury properties. Prisha nodded, taking it all in. And the projected profit from this section? Another glance between team members before Vikram stepped in. The Heritage Hills component is expected to generate approximately 30% of the overall project revenue, making it the most profitable segment, Prisha concluded. Yes, Vikram admitted. At a combination of elevation, mature landscape, potential, and water access makes it ideal for premium pricing. I'd like a moment alone with my husband, Prisha said suddenly. After the others filed out, an uncomfortable silence settled between them. Vikram stood by the window, Mumbai's sprawl visible behind him. Prisha remained seated, studying the frozen. The image of the future Heritage Hills, her grandfather's legacy reimagined as a playground for the wealthy. When did you first realize my orchard would be perfect for your project? She finally asked. Vikram sighed. Prisha, I deserve the truth, Vikram. All of it. He turned to face her. The preliminary survey identified your property as optimal about 4 months before we met. But it was just one of several potential sites at that stage. Before we met, she repeated, did you know who I was when we were introduced at that wedding? His hesitation was brief but telling. Yes, Samir mentioned you owned one of the properties in our survey area, but that's not why I talked to you. Just a convenient coincidence, then. Bitterness crept into her voice. Vikram crossed the room, kneeling beside her chair. I spoke to you because you were arranging marigolds with such care that I couldn't look away. I asked you to coffee because when you laughed, something in me came alive. Yes, I knew about the property, but that's not why I fell in love with you. But it didn't hurt your professional prospects either. She met his gaze. Tell me this: if I refuse to sell, what happens to us? The question hung between them, heavy with implication. Vikram's face showed genuine conflict. Nothing happens to us, he said finally. We'll be fine. The project will be restructured and your partnership with Sundaram. Probably lost, he admitted. Along with the promotion, most likely. Prisha nodded. Thank you for being honest. She stood up. I need to visit the orchard before I decide. Alone. The drive to Pune was long, but necessary. As Prisha walked among the mango trees, memories flooded back her grandfather, teaching her to climb the gnarled branches. Summer afternoons spent reading in the shade, the simple joy of biting into a perfectly ripe Alfonso mango, juice dripping. Down her chin, she ended up beneath the ancient banyan tree. Its massive roots creating natural seats where her grandfather had told stories of his youth. Somewhere beneath these roots lay his ashes, scattered according to his wishes. What should I do, Dada? She whispered. No answer came except the rustle of leaves in the afternoon breeze. But as she sat there, something clarified in her mind. This land had never just been an asset to her grandfather, it had been a labor of love, a piece of himself he'd tended with care and passed on with purpose by sunset. Prisha had made her decision. The day of the partnership meeting arrived with clear skies after weeks of rain. Prisha dressed carefully in a deep blue silk sari that had belonged to her grandmother. Her grandfather's gold bangles on her wrist. Vikram hadn't pressured her for an answer. Maintaining a respectful distance, while still showing small gestures of affection, coffee prepared just how she liked it. A book of poetry left on her pillow. The Sundaram developers' headquarters was even more imposing than the project office, occupying the top floors of one of Mumbai's newest skyscrapers. In the elevator, Vikram reached for her hand. "Whatever you decide," he said quietly. "I want you to know, I respect your choice." The boardroom fell silent as they entered. Around the polished table sat the key players in the Eastern Corridor Project Sundaram executives. Malhotra Enterprises board members, including Vikram's father, investors in expensive suits, all waiting for her answer. Rajiv Malhotra spoke first. "The woman of the hour. I trust Vikram has explained the opportunity before you." "Yes," Prisya replied, taking a seat beside Vikram. "And I've given it considerable thought." "Excellent," Rohan Sundaram beamed. "We have the contracts prepared. 3 times market value, as discussed, with an additional 5% goodwill adjustment. I think you'll find the terms more than generous." Prisya glanced at Vikram, whose face remained carefully neutral. "Before I give my answer," she said, "I'd like to understand one thing. What happens if I decline?" The room tensed. Rajiv Malhotra cleared his throat. "That would be most unfortunate. The Heritage Hills component is integral to our vision and the Sundaram partnership." She pressed. Rohan Sundaram smiled thinly. "While we value our relationship with Malhotra Enterprises, this project, as designed, requires that specific parcel. Without it, we would need to explore other options." "I see." Risha turned to Vikram. "And what do you think I should do, husband?" All eyes turned to him. The moment stretched, pregnant with expectation. Blossoms from stone Vikram's gaze never wavered from Prisha's face. The boardroom faded away the expectant executives. His father's stern presence, the contracts waiting for signatures, all of it disappeared until there was only his wife asking him to choose. "I think," he said slowly, "you should honor your grandfather's legacy, however feels right to you." A tense silence fell over the room. Rajiv Malhotra's face darkened. Perhaps you don't understand what's at stake." "I understand perfectly, father." Vikram's voice was quiet but firm. "This partnership would transform our company. My career would advance by years. But none of that matters if the cost is Prisha's happiness." He turned to face the stunned executives. "Heritage Hills component from our proposal will need to redesign the Eastern Corridor project around Prisha's orchard." "This is outrageous," Rohan Sundaram sputtered. "The entire project balance depends on that premium segment." "Then we'll find another way to balance it," Vikram replied calmly. "Or you're welcome to partner with Chaudhary Developments instead." His father rose abruptly. "You're throwing away everything we've worked for because of sentimentality?" "Some trees?" "No," Vikram said, taking Prisha's hand. "I'm choosing what matters most." In the chaos that followed, Prisha and Vikram slipped out. In the elevator, descending from the heights of corporate ambition, she finally asked the question that had lingered for months. "Why?" Vikram's smile was tinged with both sadness and relief. "It's because I watched you walk among those trees. Because your face, when you talk about your grandfather, glows with something money can't buy. Because I married you for love, Prisha. Not land. I just lost my way trying to prove myself." 3 months later, the first blossoms appeared on the mango trees. Vikram and Prisha walked hand in hand through the orchard that now served a new purpose. After the collapsed Sundaram deal, Vikram had proposed an alternative and ecotourism venture, incorporating the orchard as its centerpiece. Traditional cottages nestled respectfully among the trees, the ancient banyans serving as the heart of a cultural center, preserving local agricultural heritage. "My grandfather would have approved," Prisha said, reaching up to touch a delicate white blossom. "The land still sustains us, just in a different way." Vikram nodded, his arm around her waist. "And the Eastern Corridor project continues without Sundaram. Smaller scale, but more thoughtful. Father's even starting to admit it might be for the best." Sunset painted the orchard in gold. They sat beneath the banyan tree. The whispers that had once poisoned their marriage had fallen silent, replaced by the rustle of leaves and the promise of fruit to come. In choosing love over ambition, Vikram had proven himself more wealthy than any business deal could have made him. And Prisha, watching her husband's face in the fading light, knew that some inheritances were worth more than land or money. Trust, once broken, then reforged, was stronger at the mended places. Like the ancient banyan's roots, their love had found solid ground at last, not in fortune, but in truth.